Windswept is a love letter to 90s platformers. And just as tough too. Don't let this cutesy art style deceive you. This dynamic duo is for the big boys only. If you love the classics like Donkey Kong back on the SNES, which is the proper way to pronounce it, you can't convince me otherwise, this game is sure to be a nostalgia trip. With over 40 stages, tons of collectibles, and hidden bonus stages in each level, I'm expecting there to be a lot of replayability with this one. What I really love about Windswept is just how smooth it feels to control. Since this is very much a precision platformer, the movement has to be extremely dialed in, and they nailed it. It doesn't feel too floaty, and your momentum, it's instant. Another thing I really appreciate was its hands-off approach. A lot of games can be too hand-holdy and feel the need to explain every single gameplay mechanic to you. The first stage in Windswept acts as your manual, giving you the basics, and after that, it just shuts up and lets you figure it out on your own. And yeah, I mentioned how this game is tough as nails, but that doesn't mean it's not sensible. There's no life system, and the checkpoints feel well placed. Overall, I had a ton of fun playing the demo for Windswept, and guess what? It comes out tomorrow. And this really has me on the fence because I don't know if I want to wait a couple days to play Gigasword or play this one first. There's just so many awesome looking indie games coming out just in the month of November alone. Another game I want to mention is Trash. No, literally, Kingdoms of the Dump is a JRPG that takes place in the lands of Phil, where you join Dustin Bensley, the Trash Can Knight, as he travels across the 5.5 kingdoms. And you might be asking, well, why? Why a game about trash? At least that's what I wanted to know. And the answer to that is a pretty damn cool one. So the developers of this game, 2 people by the way, are both real-life full-time janitors. Do you know how awesome that is? To take and, let's be honest, a pretty mundane job and straight up turn it into an epic fantasy JRPG? I have so much respect for these people because I practice that same, when life gives you lemons philosophy. Only I'm not a talented video game developer. I'm just some random guy on the internet that talks about indie games. Anyways, we got turn-based combat, no random encounters, character swapping, unique abilities, and something I can't wait to experience, and that's a Mode 7 world map. Getting those airships in classic Final Fantasy games always amazes me, even to this day, and Kingdoms of the Dump looks like it's going to be another incredible adventure when it releases on November 18th. Okay, so I'm really starting to feel nostalgic for the Super Nintendo, and one of those games I really loved back in the day was called Desert Strike, and Cleared Hot feels like a modern version of that game, except with insanely satisfying physics and destructible environments. It's also pretty over the top and goofy too. It's like a badass action movie with a redneck protagonist. Every time I see this game, I want to say, yeehaw! America! Also, you have this magnet rope that you can use to pick up basically anything, and I love picking up the enemies with it and just flinging them across the screen. You can play the demo right now, and it releases on November 18th.
I mean, still working on it, but still.
Hypogea is a 3D platformer where you play as a staff-wielding robot trying to escape from an abandoned underground megastructure. It's more of an atmospheric puzzle platformer, so no focus on combat, but the movement tech looks really sick. It almost has this parkour feel to it, and I really like the early PS2 graphics. A lot of other indie games have that sort of 6th generation console look to them, but Hypogea feels like something I would have played on the PS2. This game actually released last night after I uploaded part 1 to this video, but if you want to try out the demo, you can still do that too. Ayasa Shadows of Silence is an adventure game sort of in the same vein as Little Nightmares, which we've been seeing a lot lately. I'm really excited to get my hands on Reanimal, and this game looks like another one of those spooky platformer contenders. You know, tiny silent protagonists, unsettling atmosphere, and tons of melancholy. One thing I will say, because I just got done playing the demo, is that the platforming could use a little bit tightening up. Because it has that overhead perspective like Little Nightmares, it can be really tricky to stick your landings. I spent about 20 minutes straight constantly falling to my death because every time I would jump in the direction of a platform, I would always land slightly behind it and just fall to my death. Maybe give us a more pronounced shadow under our character when we jump to let us know that we're directly above a surface, and maybe tighten up the response time too, because the movement, it does feel a little bit clunky for my liking. Gripes aside, I think Ayasa looks fantastic and is set to release on November 28th. Yo, shout out to Devolver Digital because almost every single game they publish ends up being a banger. They really have an eye for talent, and Forestrike looks like it's going to be one hell of a time. So the main gimmick of this game is Foresight, and it's a game mechanic that lets you experiment before the actual fight takes place. It almost makes it seem like more of a strategy game than a pure beat 'em up, and I'm all for it. I will say this though, and this is just me personally, it is a roguelike game, and I've been experiencing a bit of burnout with this genre, so hopefully those elements are unique enough to stick with me. I'm probably going to get to the demo later on today, but I will say this, the combat looks super flashy, and I'll never get sick of seeing those beautiful pixel art graphics. It releases on November 17th.
Become known to you over the course of many journeys, with each master imparting their interpretation of events, and every victory bringing you closer to the truth. Become the ultimate martial arts master. Save the Emperor and liberate the realm. Forestrike. Win the fight before it begins. Wishlist now.
Now here's a little game that caught my attention, and I just wanted to mention it because I had fun with it, but it doesn't seem to be getting any traction. And that's Into Evil. Think of Hotline Miami meets Dark Souls. Now the game is early access, it released on the 7th, but what's here so far seems pretty polished. The combat has a nice amount of weight to it. I like how streamlined the equipment system is. You just automatically equip the gear you pick up. No fumbling around in menus. I don't know why more games don't do this. Overall, I think it's a pretty good game, but not something I would rush out and play. Still though, at the very least, I think it's worth playing the demo and maybe wishlisting it. So Possesors is a new game from Heart Machine. It's one of their passion projects, and this is the developer that made Hyperlight Drifter, which is a must play if you haven't yet. And man, this combat looks sick. It's almost got a little Devil May Cry to it, with this grapple and then you got your air juggles going on. I just got done playing the new Shinobi game, and I've just been itching for more Metroidvanias that have like character action to them. And this is a Metroidvania. You can't fool me, Heart Machine. Don't bullshit me. Just call it a search action game. Just call it for what it is. Yeah, I think it's funny reading up on this game through its store page and seeing how afraid they are to use the term Metroidvania. Anyways, this game looks sick, and it releases on November 11th. Skopje, 83. I there's no way around it. I'm gonna butcher this name. It's an open world survival game with a really nice, almost Borderlands looking art style to it. But honestly, I think this comic book aesthetic looks a lot cleaner than Borderlands. The thing I like the most about this game is the idea of having a mobile base while you drive around scavenging and fighting hordes of zombies. But even though it sounds cool on paper, people are having issues with this, and it's currently mixed on Steam. Apparently people are having issues with the game's balancing and button mapping, which thankfully sounds like things that can be fixed in future patches instead of just being a bad game by design. What I would suggest is just giving the demo a try and wishlisting it. You never know, the game could become an indie darling in the future. Next, we have The Last Caretaker, which kind of pisses me off because at a distance while I was looking at the font, it made me think we were getting a new game in the Half-Life series. But anyways, this is another one of those open world survival games, and I haven't played one of these in such a long while. Outside of games like The Forest and Subnautica, I tend to get bored of these games because they become too tedious and they don't really have a story. But this one looks promising. It kind of looks like a mix between Subnautica and Satisfactory, which I'm actually pretty interested in considering it has an actual premise. You know, one of those things that play a key role in today's games. In The Last Caretaker, you play as a machine tasked with saving the future of humanity by growing crops and, I guess, building infrastructure from the looks of it. It even looks to have a fair bit of combat as well as another mobile base, this time being a ship. Yeah, this game looks pretty good. It released on November 6th, and pretty much every game I've shown off today has a demo you can play, so keep that in mind. And the last game I want to mention is Lone Fungus. And you could tell right off the bat, this game wears its Hollow Knight inspirations on its sleeves. And it even has a little bit of that Belmont whip action going on. You could probably tell I'm a huge Metroidvania fan. I grew up with both Metroid and Castlevania in my life, and Lone Fungus looks like one of the better ones. Out of, you know, the thousands you can choose from today. Anyways, this game came out just the other day, and I can't wait to get around to it. Right after I finish the other 50 or so Metroidvanias I have backlogged. Anyways, that's it for me. I'll catch you in part 3 of all the noteworthy indie games coming out during the rest of this year. It's been an incredible year for indies. I thought it would have slowed down after Silksong release, but no. It seems like we've been ramping up since then. But yeah, happy gaming everybody. Later.